Welcome everyone to my new YouTube channel from Germany. I created this channel to analyze companies from board members' perspective, understanding the decision they made, the information they had at that point in time, and why choices that felt right at that time aged badly. This isn't about blame, it's about boardroom reflections. This is to showcase the difficulties at the boardroom which clashes with your belief and your success you achieved so far. It's easy to tell once we have the result whether we will be successful or not, but it's not very easy when you are on middle of the decision. So today I have picked Nokia as our company to discuss. Everybody at my age, I'm sure, must have used Nokia's phone at some point in time. This was the first phone most of us started our telecom journey with. We still remember Nokia's phone as the most stable, not so buggy, and a phone with reasonable battery life. You charge it once and it goes basically for next 2 to 3 days. Nokia didn't fail to innovate. They failed to cannibalize their own belief system which they have carried, and the belief system which once have put them in as the boss for the mobile networks. When the moment came to choose between protecting yesterday's margin and winning tomorrow's volume, the organization chose to protect itself, its belief system, the same belief system which put Nokia as the front runner and the market leader when it comes to handset business back in the time. So now to introduce you to who Nokia is, what is our belief system, and what has helped us to dominate in the handset market. We were built to solve one thing, and that is reliable communication in harsh and unpredictable environments. Imagine the country like India. Yes, of course, it gives us a lot of customers, but the problem, we don't have stable infrastructure. We don't have stable electricity in most of the villages. Getting the mobile phone charged once itself is gonna be a challenge. And this is what Nokia took as the challenge and they have solved. You charge the phone once and it will run for next couple of days. So our motto, connecting people, was not just a tagline. It was a compass showing us where we want to be. And by the definition itself, it's very clear that we wanted to connect people. We wanted to make our handsets accessible everybody around the world. This was not a lifestyle product. This was a product which everybody needs, and our aim was to fulfill the need of every individual. This was the belief which was very dominant on our DNA, and this belief is the belief which we carried in making all the decisions downstream. Let's deep one level deeper on what our global dominance looked like. We were world class and durable when it comes to hardware engineering, backed by the European mindset of creating world class product. We deeply focused on the partnership with our carrier and with our suppliers. We also have unmatched global supply chain at an unmatched scale, backing all our aspirations, all our movements, and all our growth. We're really global company with the ability to think and adapt the devices very locally, and this is where we never had issue in moving to any new market, opening any new market, and becoming the topmost player in the market. By early 2000s, we were around 40% of handset market globally. When we were dominating the market, Apple was not a phone company. Google was not a platform owner, and the game looked fairly stable to us. Sitting at the boardroom the decision which we have to make is whether to enter in the Indian market or not. Customer-wise, volume-wise, it's always a market any company wants to enter. We decided to move to this market. It's a massive market, price-sensitive population, and most of the population, they are entering in the mobility for the first time. This also matches with our strength, where we are very good into hardwares. The battery life, the signal strength of the phone are our strength, and this matched really well with entering India as the market. So the decision unanimously was to enter and lead in the market. 2003 to 2007, this is when we have seen peak in India. The evidence of the leadership was very clear. Nokia launched its iconic product, Nokia 1100, Nokia 1200 model, which every Indians were liking for its battery life, for its robustness. We also had our UI, which was hyper localized with torchlights, UI made in Hindi for the mass, not English literate. And of course, with unmatched service. Once upon a time, phone was equal to Nokia, and Nokia was not just a phone. Whenever anybody want to say phone in India, they would say Nokia. So this was the brand awareness. This was the brand which we succeed in building India. Now this is where things started getting more interesting. While we at Nokia were busy building our brand with the masses, another players like BlackBerry, they started penetrating into enterprise handset market, and they started dominating there. Back in 2006, we have other manufacturers from Taiwan, from China. They started the hardware acceleration and making phones much cheaper than Nokia, with much more features like advanced speaker system for the music, dual camera and stuff like that. And then the most famous one, where 2007 we have seen the rise of Apple. Apple introduced first smartphone in India, and that's when the game started changing. Also in 2007-2008, Google acquired Android, and Android started becoming the go. Two new changes in the market started back in 2007. Apple introduced its iPhone and moved from PC to iPhone segment. And this is where iPhone started becoming, or handsets started becoming, the luxury segment. So this has become not just a product disruptor, but the category disruptor altogether. Another important thing which has happened back in 2007 was Google acquiring Android. This fragmented open source software is now being funded and acquired by Google, and this has become go-to for all the smartphone providers. We were still with Symbian because Symbian was our homegrown system. Traditionally also, we are hardware companies and not a software companies. So the focus for us still was hardware. And this was the decision we took in our boardroom, to focus on hardware and to focus on the penetration in rest of the rural India. This is when things started becoming more and more trickier. The world started moving from hardware-centric devices to software-driven platform. App became the product all of a sudden, and hardware became replaceable. This was the shift in philosophy. This is the shift in the philosophy which started happening. Symbian, which was keyboard, keypad driven, optimized for hardware kind of OS like iOS and Android, which has come with the philosophy of the app first and developer based iOS vertically integrated app first and Android open source and developer friendly. So these were the movement which started happening in the market. They were not just the feature upgrade. This was total philosophy shift. While the market was shifting, we at the boardroom were aware of these shifts. We were constantly discussing our strategies, and we also have seen what is coming in the market. We already have a mode created around us, and that's our global supply chain, the factories, the distribution network which we had. Android scaled exponentially without owning a single factory by creating an open source platform where individual developers were contributing and always encouraged to develop. We were scaling on the physical good where we were optimizing on cost per unit, whereas the scale of the world was moving towards cost per user. There was another change happening in the ecosystem. While Symbian was fragmented and developed to optimize around the hardware, the ecosystem around Apple and Google, they were thriving. Developers were treated as suppliers. They were contracted to build features and apps for these phones using Apple and Google platform as their base development. Best talent started pooling to develop in iOS and Google. While Symbian was still controlled, and that's where not many open source experts, they jumped into Symbian. Apps was not just nice to have feature, but it had started becoming the differentiator. The ecosystem gravity shifted. The problem with us in the boardroom is we were not the driver of the change. We were the followers this time. The other thing which started happening at the same time in India was, we call it telecom price war. We had many service providers, and every service provider is cheaper than the previous one. And this has called for a very important hardware feature within the phone, and that is the dual SIM phone. Making this hardware change was not very easy. We at Boardroom, we were knowing about this progress, but making this change for us would have taken time. Meanwhile, players like Micromax entered with dual SIM features and started dominating this part of the business also. And that's when, again, we are not the leaders, but if we move to dual SIM, we will be the followers. Influence of these changes were very clearly visible in the boardroom. We were having almost 70% market share by 2008, and this started declining. Within just 2 years, we were down by 36.3%. Remember, we were dominating by the start of 2008 in the market, and by 2010 we were around 35-36% of the total market share. We also launched Nokia N97, which was our flagship product, which was having all the features which BlackBerry has. It was having dual SIM, it was having smartphone interface, but this didn't work because iPhone has launched its third generation phone much cheaper than us. And because of the app ecosystem they have built successfully, they thrived. We were selling hardware specification, whereas Apple was busy selling the whole universe of softwares, and the softwares keeps coming every second day. There were other nicer points we were discussing in our boardroom and we were having our eyes on. One of the things was to kill Symbian early, but we haven't gone for that decision because this could have given a feeling of cultural shock and admission of our own failure. We didn't want it to do this. We didn't fully embrace Android because we wanted control, and open system could have lost all control. We also wanted to build our own ecosystem which can compete with iOS and Android system, but probably the risk was too huge because we already had the players who are already successful in the market. Our real fear was we wanted to have control over the entire hardware to software stack. We didn't want to give up on any of these things. We spent decade of engineering and we took pride in doing that. We didn't want to compromise with that. We also didn't want to give up on that. Finally, 3 lessons from the boardroom. Lesson 1 is our definition of connecting people, stay connected, become obsolete very soon as word moved from hardware experience to the software experience. Leaders must periodically reinterpret the belief system. Lesson 2 from our Nokia story: leadership style should be a strategy. We were a consensus-driven organization where we have perfected this for a stable market. But for a moving market like India, where the infrastructure itself is changing a lot, we could have adjusted our leadership style. The other thing which we mistook was that emerging market like India, they don't follow any previous path. They just leap. We assumed that India will lag. We assumed that India needs the hardware-based handsets first before it gets into the software-based infrastructure. Underestimating this leapfrogging was a strategic blindness which we have done at Nokia, and we could have done better on this also. Friends, this was the case study of Nokia as a board member itself. Now, if I ask you a simple question, what would you have done differently if you would have been the board members of Nokia at that time? I would like you to comment this in the comment section and let me know what your strategy would be to help saving Nokia from getting extinct from the handset market. Thank you, friends. If you liked this video, I would request you to subscribe my channel, share this video more and more, and like this video. I would come up with the review of some other company in my next video, and I hope you like and support my efforts in bringing the review from board's point of view. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.